Thank you all and welcome for coming here today. Before we begin with introductions, I'd just like to say that this is my last meeting as the chair of this panel, as I'm going to be Lord Mayor of Leeds the next year, starting on the 24th of May. So I'd like to thank everybody for your attendance, your participation, your help, advice, support when I was a brand new chair and quite new to the panel as well. I'm not quite sure how to go about things. It's been magnificent, and I hope that everyone has gained as much as I have from the experience of the year. As a small thank you, I brought some biscuits and crisps for those who don't like biscuits. If anyone wishes to help themselves. If we're able, we'll have a short comfort break at around 11 o'clock, so you can avail yourself of the biscuits and drinks at that point. And it's been an excellent experience for me, and I'm sorry to be leaving, but there you go. I'd also like to say, while we're talking of mayors, that our member councillor Maureen Tennant-King is going to be Mayor of Featherstone next year. So that's also an issue for congratulation. I hope you enjoy your year. Yeah. So, moving on, let's introduce ourselves. I'm Councillor Al Garthwaite from Leeds, and I've been the chairman.
I'm Councillor O'Malley, newly elected last year.
Andrew Cooper, Councillor for Ward, Kirklees.
Councillor Robert Colbert, Councillor for Burning Caldale.
I'm Daniel Ware, Superintendent within the Corporate Services function at West Yorkshire Police.
John Roberts, Chief Constable, West Yorkshire.
Alison Lowe, Deputy Mayor for Precinct and Crime, West Yorkshire. Wendy Stevens, Research Manager, Support for Alison at the panel. Visitor Director of Police and Environmental Police at the Combined Authority. Julie Reid, Head of Police and Crime at the Combined Authority. We have provided our part to support.
I'm Kingstone, Councillor for Skirk Ward in Colesdale.
Cavalier, Independent Member.
Maureen Tennant-King, Councillor at Wakefield, and I represent Featherstone.
Morning everybody, my name's Jo Sykes. I've been one of the independent members on the Police and Crime panel. I do apologise, I've got another commitment and have to leave it at 11.
Also, I'm Councillor from Bradford.
Amanda Carter, Councillor from Leeds.
Morning everyone, Nicole Sharp, I'm Councillor from Leeds.
Sharon Fraser from Wakefield Council, Legal Advisor to the panel.
Samantha Wilkinson, Police and Crime Panel Officer.
Thank you very much. And we do have a couple of apologies, don't we?
Do from Councillors Anthony Smith and Morgan Silker.
Yes. Thank you. So, first of all, we need to approve the minutes, which of the meeting of the 10th of March. And the attendance list of the minutes requires amendment, removing Councillors Thornburn and Cooper from the present list, as they had sent apologies, and they can't present their apologies and then be here and marked as both. And the minutes will also be amended to include a welcome to Councillor Anne Kingston, and thanks to Councillor Sarah Courtney for her contribution to the work of the panel. So, unless there's anything that anyone wants to bring up as part of the minutes? Yes.
Well, that's which part of the minutes I've got.
Yes. Item 3.
Item 3, really, which is
urgent.
Yeah, which is regarding the precept. We were hoping to get a report regarding the actions for the precept by now. It's 3rd of February was when that was due. I'm just wondering what the whole of this really, why we had to wait so long.
Apologies, Councillor Cooper. I sent the response from there on yesterday to the officers. Our apologies.
Yeah, I think there was a misunderstanding because we thought it had gone. Each person thought that it had gone and it came in, so I'm very sorry.
Okay. Just like to hang over till the next meeting.
Yeah, we'll have to go over this. It's not an ideal situation. We would have liked to have looked at it this time. But in future. I hope that should be the case. Okay, so we'll go straight on then to any members have a declaration of interest, an opportunity for panel members to verbally declare any interest on any items in the agenda. Does anyone have such a declaration to make? No. Move on then to item number 5. And this is a report that we've been provided with on road safety. Yes, so we have a number of questions. I think, Councillor. Yes, would you like to say anything about this before we start?
I'll just make a few very brief comments, but I'd like to welcome Neil, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Neil Hudson, the Policy Manager for Vision Zero for the Combined Authority. I'm sitting here for the road safety paper.
Yeah, so Neil and Sonny, who is also in the gallery, I think started about
6th of February.
Yeah, so very newly appointed, and obviously we wanted some capacity to be able to drive the Vision Zero strategy that we've got across West Yorkshire. So we're really pleased that they're here. And Neil and Sonny are responsible for the majority of this paper. As you can see, we're not in a great place here in West Yorkshire with regard to the increase in killed and seriously injured on the road, and that's one of the reasons why Vision Zero is such an important initiative here for us all. Although some of those figures will be starting to plateau, hopefully, to be able to will attest to that fact or not. We're just really happy to answer the questions, but I would just like to say that we're particularly pleased at the progress that we're making with the camera safety partnership, which I've discussed here a few times, where we weren't able to move forward with a new locally accountable strategy because we're waiting on new guidance from the DFT, and here in West Yorkshire I'm delighted to say that the Safety Camera Partnership decided that they were going to write their own and not wait for the DFT, and the result of that is that we've now got a response that is informed by local community concerns. So we've now hopefully listened to our local authority partners. We have got a strategy and an approach which local people will be able to see is making a difference. So really excited about that and happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Nothing else you want to say at the moment?
No, I think like Alison says, it's where we are now, it's an opportunity for us to move forward with Sonny and I in post. Hopefully we can drive that across all of West Yorkshire, and I think we are starting to make some inroads, as hopefully the report does suggest.
Okay, thank you. So we'll proceed with questions from the panel. Councillor Tennant.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm looking at the table on 2.5.2 and looking at the figures for May and December. Could you tell me, please, what triggers the upsurge in these months and what can or is being done about it?
So in terms of the data, we haven't got any specifics that have been put to May and December. That is something that we are looking at, so that we can look at what the causes are, so that we can work with those. When you look at the figures from May through to December, there is that decrease, as it states within the report. What we have done in relation to the data is that we have set up a data group within West Yorkshire to ensure that all of the different partners are sharing that information so that we can get to the bottom of the issues that we have. So the first meeting of the data group is on the 27th of this month.
Thank you. Mr. Lake, I think you had
Yeah, thanks.
issue you wanted to raise.
Yeah, thanks for the report. Very detailed, so well done on drafting that. I think it might benefit from just another look at the purposes, just for clarification, because it's sort of drifted a little bit in the information, I think, so that might be helpful for us to have a more clarity around the purpose. My specific question is, and I may have missed this somewhere else, 2.8.8. The board met now and set up a couple of meetings and agreed a range of initial milestones to support the Vision Zero ambition. A lot of those milestones, I understand this, it's about baseline reviewing project coordination, governance structures, etc. Have you come up with any definitive numbers yet, trajectory over the next few years that you're aiming to achieve as a result of all this work? And if so, could that be shared so we can see what you're aiming for, and therefore, on an annual basis, have a look at how you're doing against your initial expectations?
Yeah, so our West Yorkshire strategy isn't completed, but each of the local authorities is developing their own strategy. So Leeds has got their Vision Zero strategy with some numbers and targets that have been there. Bradford have similarly. We're waiting on the others to complete their strategies and then we can follow. We have got a vision to eliminate KSIs by 2040. And obviously everything we do will start at 2040 and work back. But we're waiting for the local authorities to complete their strategies, and then we can have an overarching report that understands what we all need to be doing together, what they need to do as individual local authorities, what the opportunities are for bringing funding in, what the opportunities are for greater collaboration with other Vision Zero cities as well, because there's some great knowledge out there that we need to bring in. So that's the next stage, but we just need the strategies to all be in sync before we can do that. What's what do you think?
Yeah, I think what I'm saying in terms of the global view of the safer systems approach, 2040 is a common goal in terms of a number of different areas. Within that, we will be setting targets to achieve, and in terms of the conversations that we have had at this point, we'll be looking to halve it by 2030, so that will give us a platform to build from.
So perhaps we can put it down for a later date, see what this trajectory is. So we don't want to wait until 2030 to...
No, and as soon as we've done our strategy, we'll bring it here.
Okay.
Okay. Councillor Cooper.
Yeah, I'm wondering about looking at this, what the Mayor, Deputy Mayor is doing to ensure consistency of approach across the different authorities. The thing that's making me think that is, I look at our authority and I see, I think there ought to be greater investment in road safety. I think there's not the level that I particularly want there, and I'm sure there's different levels in each authority. The other thing was the moving traffic offences. Some authorities took advantage of the opportunity to take on some of the powers around vehicle offences, and some didn't. And you look at that and think, well, how is that to be consistent with a consistent approach? And what are we doing to actually get people together to address those sort of issues?
So I'll start first. So obviously, the Vision Zero board is not a replacement for each local authority, which is body corporate and makes their own decisions. What we're trying to do is bring that coordination, cohesion, that space where we can talk about how we achieve our West Yorkshire-wide aspirations together, looking at good practice. Clearly the strategy will be a key document in achieving that, but it was really clearly laid out by the leaders when we first approached them to set up Vision Zero board, that they would have hegemony in their own local authorities, which is right. Clearly the Mayor has got a role in the CR, I never remember the acronym, so CRSTS funding, and each local authority has to bid for that, and they have to give us a business case what they're going to be doing, and so that's an opportunity for us to influence there and bring some of those synergies and some of those opportunities together. But we don't want to take away from each local authority. So Colindale, the responses that they will want to come up with for their locality will be completely different to Bradford, and that's right. So we need that flexibility, that local understanding and knowledge of the communities across West Yorkshire, but we also have the opportunity to bring that good practice together and that cohesion.
Sorry, just come back on that. Of course, we want different approaches, but sometimes authority may not be placing the priority or taking the opportunities, or being understaffed, or there may be reasons there where they're not actually pulling their weight as it might be in this area. How do we address that?
So our experience is not that any one local authority is not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Everyone is committed to making sure that all local authorities are represented on the board. What we're finding is that they're in different places for a variety of different reasons, but the commitment to move at pace is there across the whole of West Yorkshire. We've only just got much of the data, we haven't even got all of the data, so because we've been waiting for our staff to come in, because the capacity hasn't been there in wider West Yorkshire. We needed Neil and Sonny to come and took all the baseline information. So we've got the baseline information for each local authority, which is patchier for some than others, and we're trying to develop an understanding of where we are now, what further information we need from different partners, and we're in a position to say that this is where we are now, and we'll be able to then set those targets that have already been mentioned, and set those aspirations and monitor whether or not we're making the improvement that we want to make. But the commitment is 100% there from all our 5 local authorities.
Coming back to your point, one of the key things is resourcing issues in certain districts, and one of the things that we have discussed at both the executive board and also the steering group board is around how we use the funding for economies of scale across West Yorkshire rather than just defining per district, which is what traditionally has been the case. So we will be looking at various initiatives across the board to try and provide those economies of scale to enable the other districts to move at the same sort of pace.
And the Camera Safety Partnership Strategy absolutely does that. It's bought on block for the partnership, and that will be deployed across West Yorkshire, depending on not just the data for crashes and collisions, but also the community concerns that are raised by members of the public.
So just one last comment.
Okay.
Moving traffic offences, some took advantage of it, some didn't. I think, would you expect that all councillors in some shape or form should take advantage of that?
It's a very operational decision, and I'm sure that there are a lot of local conversations with West Yorkshire Police and with officers about who took on those responsibilities. It would have absolutely depending on the capacity that each local authority had. So I think we've got to let local authorities make the decisions that are right for them, and it's about the public then holding their elected members to account for the decision making that they take.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Thunders, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's under 2.17, safety camera enforcement. While I welcome this as one of the Mayor's priorities, and the official ones of the new camera partnership, there is an element of cost to this as well. What use and benefit is the investing in signage, speed camera signage? So I feel that is more effective than speed cameras. We have a certain road in Coldale, it has a speed camera sign. We don't know when the vans are going to be deployed, but it does slow people down because it makes them all aware. Another road where it's a fixed camera and everybody speeds up to the camera and then carry on. I did raise this with the MP's office about 10 years ago, and I got hostility response from the MP's office regarding legislation and back to the police and so on. What emphasis is there looking at if there is any change in legislation, actually looking at that for the more use of each side?
So the Camera Safety Partnership launched their new strategy a few weeks ago. You might have seen all the publicity across the media, including me, and a member of our board who has lived experience, a member of their family was tragically killed. And we absolutely hope that new strategy forward is a positive thing, because the evidence over many years is that the signage alone doesn't stop crashes occurring, and the data is showing that we've got an increase in case size across the county. So the risk of death is real, the evidence is showing us that we need to do something differently. And so what we want is for people not to see a sign and think, oh, there might be a camera around here, I'll slow up. But of course, once they know that road, then they'll drive as they all want to drive. And we want people to think anywhere in West Yorkshire, I don't need to have a sign, there might be a camera, so I better drive at the speed limit on the road. And that's really the behaviour change that is embedded within Vision Zero, because if we don't get changes in driver behaviour, then I'm afraid the deaths that we're seeing and the serious injuries we're seeing will not reduce. And so we need to have that fear factor, drivers, all of us, so that we are conscious of the speed that we're driving at all the time. So it is a change, it is a behaviour change that we're expecting, and we're going to take some time. But it's something that we're doing because the evidence is that if we don't do this, nothing will change. Anything you want to add?
I think what we'll say on top of that, obviously in terms of the empirical evidence, that is given in terms of the number of studies that have occurred over the years. But when it comes to this kind of safety partnership, one of the things that has been done is there's been investment in new mobile units, and there are a number of new units which will be heading out onto the roads, and that will certainly support the Vision Zero strategy.
Okay, thank you.
So be careful, we've all got to be careful.
And rightly so. Thank you. Yes, I have a question now. I'm aware, and it says in the report at 2.16, that the development of the National ANPR, Automatic Number Plate Recognition Service, by the Home Office is not yet fully realised, and development has cost 120,000, figures rising, but we still can't use it in West Yorkshire, so we're actually using the old system, and it seems not either logical and also unfair that we're paying for two systems at a time of extreme financial pressure. So I'm wondering whether you're able to bring any pressure to bear on the Home Office to waive the mandatory charges to forces for the national system until these issues are resolved.
Yeah, I'll bring the Chief Constable on this, but obviously it was this panel many years ago that agreed a huge investment from the Transformation Fund, so £20 million Transformation Fund that the then PCC held, that sought to really develop ANPR capabilities and capacity across West Yorkshire. And we had a massive boom in the use of ANPR, and it's been incredibly useful to identify and track down offenders over many years. And so it's a bit of a jewel in our crown, and one of many ways that we're able to keep West Yorkshire much safer. So we're really keen that whatever new system comes in nationally, it's as good as the system that we've already got here in West Yorkshire, and is as effective. And so I am convinced that the National Police Chiefs Council are having those conversations with the Home Office and wider, because that is the case for other systems that the government is attempting to bring in, and not being quite so successful at it, that we're rejecting asks to get rid of systems that are definitely working, to bring in systems that don't yet know are working at the same capacity or capability. But I'll ask John to comment.
No, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think the paper is very polite and courteous. What it doesn't actually say is that that system isn't as good as the West Yorkshire Police system, so we're not prepared to take it on at this time. It also hasn't got the support functions in place. Neil understands and knows it inside out through his previous roles. I think it's very interesting. It's an interesting point around actually mandatory charges, and we'll maybe have a further discussion, because we very much support some other voices in that to say, we're not there yet. We're not prepared to take it on because it doesn't deliver to the same cost and the same benefits and the same operational delivery as to what we've already got.
I think you're quite right about your judgment on when it's safe and appropriate to take it on. We're just concerned that you should be paying twice, because that is unfair and unjust. You only pay for something once it's fit for purpose, in my view. In our view. Thank you. So the next, Councillor Sharp, if you had a question.
Vision Zero has come to my scrutiny board in these a couple of occasions, and it's been very welcomed. And I know that there's a lot of work going on across the My question is in relation to safety camera enforcement. reports states that cameras are being deployed to high-risk sites. What is the criteria for having a camera sited, and how is consultation taken on that?
So there's a variety of ways. So there's the old traditional way that it's all about the data, how many reported crashes, near misses, all that stuff is taken into account, just as it has always been. But now the strategy is encouraging those community concerns to also be taken into account, and so that is concerns raised by councillors. So I very much push this with the Camera Safety Partnership, because as councillors we all know for many years, we were not listened to, our voices were not heard, and we were representing tens of thousands of people locally, and we knew that the concerns that were being raised were genuine, and that the risks to the public were real, and because we didn't meet that criteria of, we haven't had a death or serious injury on that particular stretch of road, the concerns that were being raised were not listened to, were not acted upon. The community concern now means there's a process for raising the importance of stretches of roads. If enough people are raising those concerns, if enough councillors are raising those concerns, together with the data, it doesn't have to be that someone has died, because that was a horrible thing. Somebody had to die before you were died. That felt really bad. That's no longer the case. It's unlikely you'll get a fixed camera, but that's why there's been purchased an investment in all these new mobile cameras. And it is very much expected that those mobile cameras will then be brought to those areas where those community concerns have been raised, and hopefully will have a long-term impact, because the mobile, so they can go, they can come back, they can go, they can come back, until people's behaviour changes.
Okay.
Can I just follow up?
Yes,
Is that
of course.
national?
No, it's our West Yorkshire Camera Safety Partnership. Yeah, because we're still waiting for DFT guidance, which we've been waiting for 2.5 years.
Is that the same with the last the comment around the mandatory speed limit signs, a requirement to provide additional signs?
Yeah, that's all part of the local strategy. Yeah. So the leadership that they're showing is amazing, and it's all linked to having the Vision Zero board, and obviously the safety, the partnership sit on the Vision Zero board. We're joining up the way that we're working to make it better for everybody.
Okay. Yeah. Another question, this one from me. 2.17.6. There's a detailed table of offences here, which is very interesting, but it doesn't actually say what year this relates to. If you could please clarify that. And it doesn't show a trend or year-on-year comparisons. So could you clarify?
Yeah, so if you'd like to look back to 2.17.1, the second paragraph in there, in 2022, the total of 198,360 offences. That is the table minus the motorway account, as it does state in the beginning. So it is 2022 data, so it is each month broken down from 2022.
Thank you. I haven't done the arithmetic, so thank you for that.
No problem.
Thank you. And you have talked about the trend elsewhere as well, which I think is. Are there any other questions from panel about this particular report?
I've just
Councillor Sullivan.
thought of one. The 2.17.6, the stats on speed-related offences. I'll just take the first one, Bradford, because I'm from Bradford. 46,548. Next door, Calderdale, 12,000. I know it's a smaller place, but what is the percentage? It's how well is each doing. We need a percent, don't we? We need those figures relative to population to get the true meaning. I don't suppose you've got them off the top of your head, but can we have them?
Unfortunately, no. I haven't got them off the top of my head, but yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Because I've just been trying to find your email address to ask that question, but I can't find it.
My email address should be at the bottom of the report for you.
Oh, really?
Okay. Thank you for that question. Yes, it is right at the bottom. Thank you. Anything else then before we move on to the next report?
Comment to just a non-political comment to commend the Deputy Mayor leadership that they've shown in that Vision Zero and for the recruitment of people by putting money into it. Sadly, my employees are very fine employees, but I think things have changed over the last year or so in relation to the approach towards roads safety in West Yorkshire, and it's a very welcome change, and it's also lovely to hear the panel talking beyond policing and across the whole partnership today. So just a comment.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Let's hope this positivity can carry through the entire meeting. Thank you. So we'll move on to the update on the West Yorkshire Safety of Women and Girls, item 6. And again, Deputy Mayor, do you wish to say anything as an introduction to this?
Yeah, again, very briefly, but first of all, I'd like to introduce our Policy Officer for Women and Girls, Erin Sandu, who has written the majority of this report. So thank you to Erin. It's obviously you've read it, you can ask whatever questions you like, but I particularly commend you to the local initiatives that are happening at point 4, and then the West Yorkshire Police initiatives that are happening from page 11 at point 5 onwards. I think that's the bringing to life of the Safety of Women and Girls strategy. This is the things that we're doing differently as a result of having Tracy and I in these roles, but also the commitment that we've got across all the partnerships, CSPs, policing, voluntary sector. Everyone is as one when it comes to eliminating violence against women and girls, and I think that the evidence of this paper really shows the commitment firsthand. So really happy to answer the questions.
Thank you. Thank you. We do have a number of questions. I'll start with Mr. Sykes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. Listen, it's really interesting to read, and it obviously gives a very comprehensive overview and shows, how the commitment to the pledge to put women and girls at the heart of policing. Just wondering, from an opportunity for the panel to have a deeper understanding of that, would you be able to share the delivery plan for the strategy with us?
Yeah, well, I think that's in developing it now.
Absolutely correct. It's in development, which is following based off of what the initiatives are working on so far, collaboration and consultation with local authorities as well as our internal combined authority team. So we can share that once it's ready.
Yeah. And also, just to say that we have been working with CSPs for over a year on their delivery plans in terms of the money that the Mayor gives to our community safety partnerships, because obviously violence against women and girls is one of the priorities that we ask them to include in their activity. So we've got metrics and performance targets that we've given to them, which they are accountable for if they want to get that money. So that's something that's already that's already happening.
Can I just come back with a third question? So obviously going through CSPs, will that involve youth justice services as well, who obviously are working with young people around that? Are they CSPs actively linking in with the yachts?
Yeah, and actually the local criminal justice board, which I chair, the very first meeting that we had, I asked for a thematic meeting and for partners to focus on the work that they were doing with women and girls, and youth justice came to that meeting and were able to respond on the things that they're doing. So the community safety partners that we're directly funding through the over 5 million that we've been funding for many years, I don't think youth justice is one of those partners that's directly funded, but clearly
it used to be. Yeah. Used to be passported, didn't it? From it, the money used to be protected within the money that was given to the CSP, and that the ring fence has been lifted, hasn't it? From
so is it the youth?
It used to be ring-fenced, as you say.
Yeah, but it's not. Yes, no. It's not ring-fenced anymore, and it hasn't been for about a year.
No.
Yeah. So obviously, local authority, CSP partners, they decide with their youth justice services what gets passported and what doesn't. But yeah, and we've also got there's another pot of money that is just for young people just being evaluated, and we've been in conversations with all the local authorities about that pot of money, which is the positive futures, that's it. And we've asked for that to be informally ring-fenced, so we said, you know, giving it to you, but we would really like to see that this is spent on youth activities with young people in your localities. Later on, when I do my announcements, I'll talk to you about the ASB immediate justice pilot and some of the work we want to do there with young people.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Solomon.
Thank you, Chair. A sort of more condensed version of the same question relating to 3.23. Programme aims. I'm a big believer in prevention is better than cure, and these look very commendable, these projects. But it says reporting for these programmes is ongoing. And I realise it's new from the third quarter of 22, but, you know, how's it shaping up in these early stages?
Well, these are trusted partners that we've been working with for many years. So we already know that these partners can and are delivering across our communities, and many of them have activity beyond the money that we're giving, and so the money we give adds value and it gives us that additionality. So we're very confident that these organisations are not only delivering for us now, but will continue to do so. But Erin, do you want to talk about any of the forms and tricks that we might have on them?
So again, just to reiterate, it's because they are being trusted partners. I don't have the specific data to hand right now, but it's something we can follow up on introduction. We have partnered towards the commission these.
Yeah, because everyone who's funded, we've got a performance framework. It depends if it's how much money. So the Mayor Safer Communities Fund, which is up to £8,000, very light touch performance arrangements, as you might appreciate. But for some of the bigger organisations and bigger pots of money, we've got a quite well-established performance framework, which Julia Clough, our commissioning lead, is responsible for holding people to account. And she's got a team of people who contract manage.
Yeah, it's a bit like Trevor's earlier point on another issue. It's having a baseline to measure it, so we can say how we go on in, you know, per quarter, per year, whatever. So, can we get that in sometime fairly soon?
I mean, I think the difficulty is that we're funding charities, their sectoral partners, to do specific work, but it's within the overall context of the local authority, the communities that they're living and working in.
Yeah.
And we're not saying that we're responsible for the whole of youth service, or that we're responsible for the whole of violence against women and girls. What we're saying is that we're adding value to the local tapestry of activity, and that's quite local.
That's a good word.
And so what we ask people to do might be to deliver X amount of activity, which we can definitely report against and tell you.
Yeah.
But in terms of impact, there'll be definitely case studies, there will be feedback from individual beneficiaries. But when we're talking about, well, how has that impacted the system, it's not really fair to James that their activity changes the landscape for young people in the whole of Keighley, for example, because they're a tiny part of what's happening in wider Keighley. And it's what is the local authority doing, what is the youth services doing and youth justice doing, what policing doing. So it's that whole partnership approach. So we can definitely tell you about what we've asked for in the funded work that we've asked them to do. We can definitely tell you about that. But in terms of the difference that they're making to the whole system, that's much more difficult to be able to...
I mean, look at it from another way. You mentioned James, let's just take that as an example. Imagine the day came where you thought, these are no good, we're getting rid of them. You'd have to evidence that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, all I'm doing is posing the same question from the other end of the spectrum.
Absolutely. And you might remember that last time we brought the commissioning strategy, which was completed, and there was a process in the commissioning strategy for decommissioning services. So there's definitely a performance framework which Julia Clough's team leads on. So they contract manage all the funded services. They don't contract manage the Mayor Safer Communities Fund as I've described, because that's a very small amount of money and it's very light touch, and Sharon Wall's engagement team does the oversight of that. But we can definitely take you through the processes that Julia
I'm asking this because I'm really encouraged by this, and I want to encourage you and the deliverers to get stuck into this, because definitely prevention is a lot less expensive than cure.
Oh, no, absolutely, and obviously the later paper on early intervention and prevention hopefully gives you a much better picture of all the different things that we're doing, but it's a lot of activity, and it's about how is it impacting on the whole.
I've got tapestry in my head, it's all right.
Good.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, pass on to Mr. Lake, you had a question.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It's specifically around 3.3.3. I was just a bit confused as to which point it was referring to. Later paper 7, we've got a chart attached which shows that the West Yorkshire A&E Navigator is a pilot, but the DVA specialist in the control room isn't. So I wanted a bit of clarity. Which of the 2 points are the one that's been decided to not continue?
The DA scheme in the control room is not being taken forward.
Right, so the Navigator programme continues.
Yeah, and it's been very well evaluated, and it's been nationally evaluated, and we will cite this good practice in the national evaluation.
My fault for being only being concerned with that.
Okay, Councillor Kingston, you had a question.
Thank you very much. It's on 3.1.4, the Mayor's introduced the Stalking Advisory Service, and just wondered what you put in that service.
As if by magic. Yes, so the Mayor's provided a total of £452,000 for 3 years, 22 to 25. It's free and confidential for victims of domestic abuse related stalking, and victims do not have to report to the police to access that service. And the service supports anyone and everyone aged 16 and over in line with domestic abuse legislation. And since the service went live in October 2022, we've had 562 victim referrals. 568 victims have been supported, that's new referrals and existing. 539 victims reported the crimes to the police throughout or after engaging with the Victim Support Service. And we've had 512 victims who have exited the service in that time. So very, very well utilised. And the majority of referrals actually come from the stalking coordination team that West Yorkshire Police set up in response to the stalking roundtable that we held in September 2021 when the Mayor and I first came into post. It was something that was raised by members of the public as an area of development, and so the police heard that and they set up a stalking coordination team, and we set up the advocacy service to support, and they're working hand in hand now on the vast majority of these referrals coming directly from that team.
I've got a follow-up on that. So Pillar 1 of West Yorkshire Police's Violence Against Women and Girls strategy is set out as increasing trust and confidence in policing. There has been a significant negative press attention nationally around the role of the police in violence against women and girls and trust and confidence in policing. Is there a concern that this may stop victims reporting crime, and what is the Mayor doing to address this?
Yeah, I mean, clearly we're all aware of the national situation that we're in, and the case in the court that I was going to mention at the end is another hammer blow to policing and to the trust and confidence that we all need to be able to deliver an effective police function. Because we can't be safe if we don't have a body that keeps us safe. And it's been a focus of the conversations that the Mayor and I have been having with the Chief Constable over a long period of time. And obviously that's one of the reasons why West Yorkshire Police and nationally the National Police Chiefs Council have developed their own violence against women and girls strategies, because they recognise that this is a seminal issue for all the public, not just women and girls, and that they need to be able to show that they're moving forward on an agenda that is about bringing back trust and confidence. From my perspective and the Mayor's perspective, what we try to do is to increase trust and confidence by being very visible to women and girls in our community, talking about our own lived experience of sexual violence, talking about how we're holding the Chief Constable to account, giving the Chief Constable opportunities to talk directly to the public, as he did at the last meeting when we were talking about the subject. And today, when we talk about Casey at the end, I shall be asking the Chief Constable to speak to the people of West Yorkshire about his commitment, which I know is there. There's so much work that's going on behind the scenes to address misogyny, to address the concerns that women and girls have, and wider. You know, if you've got a mother, a daughter, a sister, then clearly you're going to be concerned about the issues that have come to the fore over the last few years. So we think that by being honest, open, transparent and authentic as women with lived experience, that we're hopefully giving confidence to victims to come forward. And that's what victims say to us. We meet lots of people out and about, as is Tracy. We go to refugees, we go to places where women are, and they tell us that we are inspiring them. They tell us that they're giving them confidence. But clearly, on the other side, policing has to respond appropriately, because if they get the courage to pick up the phone and have those conversations and they don't get the right response, then that is devastating. So we are working in partnership with West Yorkshire Police. That is very, very clear. We can't do it on our own. We don't want to do it on our own. And we need to bring West Yorkshire Police with us on this journey, and I believe that we are.
Thank you. I know, Councillor Tenkin, you had a question related to this.
Thank you. So just really, I was going to ask something similar to that. I've read the report, and it's good to see all these initiatives. But I wanted to know what's been done to encourage more women and girls to report these crimes instead of suffering in silence.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's all sorts of, I've just spoken about the visibility and the leadership that we're hopefully showing, but obviously we're commissioning a whole range of services out there in the communities that we serve. One of the things that we did with the Mayor Safe Communities Fund in the very first round was have violence against women and girls as the main focus. And I've got some data somewhere and I can find it, but I probably can't now that I'm looking for it. And the vast majority of the Mayor Safe Communities Fund is benefiting women and girls. And so that's another way that we're building that capacity across women and girls across West Yorkshire to feel confident, to know their rights, to know that that it's okay to report. But we're also clearly using the ISVA, ICSA functionality that we've got to also work with current victims to have the courage to see through court cases and get the justice. And the more women who get justice, the more women will see that you can get justice, and then that will be hopefully another means to an end that women will report. And I'd like to also add that West Yorkshire Police are doing a lot of work in that space too, so they've got all their scrutiny arrangements around violence against women and girls, working directly, speaking directly to women and women's groups, giving that clarity about what women can expect and the routes to report dissatisfaction with the service that they've got. So we are working hand in hand to create that environment where women feel that they can report. But it'll never be 100% for all sorts of reasons. But we don't want trusting the police to be a barrier.
Councillor Carter.
Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to carry on from that Baroness Casey's report review highlighted some very disturbing issues in the Met, and I don't want to compare West Yorkshire Police, or indeed most other police forces in Wales, to the Met, because it's completely different. They've got a force of 43,000 and they work in a very different way. What I've seen of the police is extreme bravery. They go out every day and put their life on the line. And we've seen that Sharon Freshnetti's murderer has only just been captured 15 years later. She lost the line.
Alleged.
Well, I've seen officers coming to the police treatment centre have been shot in the face. And the David Brathband issue, he gave his own life after being attacked. So I think that West Yorkshire Police are very dedicated, very brave, and they put their life on the line a lot. However, the Baroness Casey report did bring to light some issues with regard to how do you dismiss a police officer who has committed a racist crime or misogynistic. It's the kind of thing that we don't want to see. It puts women off reporting crimes. How do you dismiss and how can you ensure that those police officers are not in West Yorkshire Police?
So first of all, I absolutely second your comments about the vast majority of police officers and staff here in West Yorkshire. They're a credit to our county. They are committed to the safety of the whole of West Yorkshire, including women and girls. And they are very brave. They go out and experience horrendous things that none of us would ever want to encounter in our lives. And we're really lucky that the vast majority of us will never encounter any of the things that police officers see often on a daily basis. I think the Chief Constable said in a previous meeting that officers will experience between 200 and 300 traumatic experiences in their service, whereas most people, it's one or two, if that. I do think that there are always going to be individuals who choose policing because of the power that it confers, because of the opportunity to abuse that power. And we need processes to make sure that those people are rooted out and got rid of as soon as possible. The problem is that the system currently in place to dismiss officers is very cumbersome. In some ways that's good because you're innocent until proven guilty in this country and you've got to follow a process that is fair to all. We spend a lot of money training up police officers, a lot of time is invested in bringing officers up to a standard that means that they can go out and protect the public. You don't want to have a process that is very fast, that takes out that capacity, that capability, that skill, without having a really robust process that tests the innocence or guilt of that person. So in some ways, that process needs to be well thought out and considered. But there are processes currently in place, so we've got these things called legally qualified chairs. So they came in 2016, following concerns from some of the public, but also from the Home Office, that some chief constables were dismissing serial offenders or people who were not fit to be police officers. And so they brought in independent, legally qualified chairs. Unfortunately, what is happening, because in my national role on the Association of Police and Crime Commissioners, I'm the deputy lead for transparency and integrity, and so legally qualified chairs come under our portfolio. We've been doing a lot of work with the Minister, Policing Minister, the Home Office, and now with the National Association of Legally Qualified Chairs to address the issue that legally qualified chairs can potentially be personally sued for decisions that they're making. There's some case law that's not been, we haven't got to the end of that case law yet, but it's raised lots and lots of concerns for LQCs. So as a result of that, there is a belief, whether it's right or wrong, that LQCs are not dismissing for fear that they will be personally taken to tribunal, as is happening in one case that is not yet completed. But there's also a frustration amongst some chief constables that even where legally qualified chairs might feel free to dismiss, that they're failing to do so on some technical legal issue. There's now a national review of the dismissal process, which I have fed back on, as have other members of the NPCC, and I know that the NPCC have also fed back. And we're awaiting the outcome of that review. And what I suggested is that we have a combined process where there's a chief constable representative and an independent legal representative on the panel. That it's a chief constable process, but that independent legal person is also on the panel, and that brings the best of both worlds. So that's what I personally recommended in my feedback to the Home Office. We will get what we get in the end, but the ridiculous situation that we're in some cases, and there were examples given as part of this review, which were outrageous, where people were bang at it and have not been dismissed. We can't be in that position because trust and confidence relies on the public believing that people will do wrong, get dismissed as a result.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. And as it happens, we're now just about exactly on time for the comfort break that I promised. So 5 minutes, and then we'll proceed with the agenda. Thank you. Thank you. We're now approaching, come to the point of item 7, the report on early intervention and prevention. As always, would the gentleman like to introduce this?
Yeah, I'll say a few comments. Wendy's now back because Wendy authored this paper, and I'll feel on the Police and Crime Plan had early intervention and prevention as one of the 3 overarching aims. It's a golden thread, and so it's really difficult to know whether or not you're preventing and whether you're putting that early intervention in effectively, because time will tell, and obviously we're still at the start of the journey. But I think this paper really successfully outlines the activities that we're undertaking from Mayor Safe and Communities Forum, the partnerships we've got with the third sector, our commissioning grants work, the work that we're doing within districts, the VRU partnership, Option Lock partnership, but also the partnership with West Yorkshire Police and the work that they're doing regarding Paulette, for example, cadets, the stalking coordination unit. So hopefully people have read the report and if they've got any questions.
Thank you. Yes, there are indeed a few questions about it, but I did find this a very interesting report. Councillor Sullivan, you had a question.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this question is cure and prevention. Point 72, the 12-month period. They look wonderful figures, 6.8 as opposed to 42% recidivism in a year. But then I see the total number of people involved, and I suspect that that is a drop in the ocean of alleged perpetrators of this kind of violence in a year. So it's kind of the 236, how does that match up against the total? It's about the criteria for going on that course. Is it maybe first-time offenders and alleged offenders? And if it is, what's the recidivism rate in the other 14,000? Because it looks great, and it seems that we should be putting our money here.
Yeah, and just to say that the funding for CARA has traditionally come from the Home Office, and we bid for funding for the next 2 years and we've not been successful. And because it comes from the Home Office, we have to meet their criteria, and so it outlines in the report the criteria that has to be met, which is those people who could be offered a caution, so it's got to meet that threshold. So people who are much more dangerous don't meet the criteria for this, and that's obviously many thousands of people across West Yorkshire. So obviously we deliver the service, we fund the service, the CARA prevention service that is within our gift, and it meets that Home Office criteria. Maybe now that actually we're not getting funded anymore and we're having to find the money within the Mayor's, we don't know where we're going to find it, but we're looking for the money in the Mayor's pot, which is not very deep. Maybe we can widen that criteria, but obviously the capacity won't widen because it's going to be very difficult to fund it going forward. But I'll let Wendy.
Does it say you've got 2 years funding line?
Yeah. But no, so we've had to promise that money in order to get this funded. We had to give a 3-year contract, but only 1 year it was funded. And so you have to apply every year to government. So the Home Office, it's an annual funding cycle. Not for everything, because obviously now they've given us BIU funding for 3 years, which is brilliant. But this money, we bid for it on an annual basis, and we haven't got it for the next 2 years. We're for 2 years because the money was there for 2 years this time. So we haven't got it. So the Mayor's having to fund it because we'd already put out the contract for 3 years.
I'm going to have another bite of the cherry before your colleague comes in. It will be interesting to know how this, are these figures replicated nationally? Because that might persuade a government of whatever stripe to invest in it to get results like this.
So there's quite a lot of different activity going on with people in different cohorts. So there's some MOJ, well there was some MOJ funded activity which is now being reviewed. So that funding stopped and there's an 18-month gap between that activity was the Yorkshire Children's Centre delivered that here in West Yorkshire, so we didn't fund that, the government funded that direct. So there are lots of different complementary and separate activities going on, so it'd be quite difficult to just take out the CARA related stuff. But I'll let Wendy answer that question because you might have some further thoughts.
Yeah, so going back to your original question, CARA is all about the first time offenders and getting in there early intervention and prevention. So the 6.8% are the perpetrators that offended again against the West Yorkshire average of 42.2%. So this is the national, that is also evaluated nationally as well. So there are, not all forces use CARA, but there are quite a few across the country, and there is a national evaluation, and CARA is shown to make that difference. I think 6.8 is amazing for West Yorkshire, but it does make a big difference. So there is that national report there, and it's been there for the government. It was before this funding was applied for, so it was there for the government to see that it does make a big difference, but we still didn't get the funding. So that's where we're sat at the moment.
Yeah, and as I said, the funding for the more serious domestic abuse, which was delivered under MOJ funding, that stopped pending the review. So currently there's not a lot out there for serious perpetrators of domestic abuse, and it's a gap. And we have written to government to alert them to the gap and the fact that there are people out there who might be able to change their behaviours, who might be able to get that help, who won't have the referral pathway for them, so we need to resolve it ASAP. But as I say, the CARA money, we made a commitment, we offered that contract, so we will fund it, but then that means we won't be funding something else. But the decision about how we'll fund it has not been taken yet, because we're still in the first year of funding.
Is there I don't expect to have this now, but I'm thinking, if there's a figure of per person who's at 6.8 as opposed to 42%, compared with what happens, what's the average when someone commits an offence, the custody, the etc., social services? I imagine it's a tiny fragment of the horrible costs. If some work could be done on that, it might be a bit more compelling to ministers.
I think work has been done by National Women's Aid, for example, because it's not just the cost of the criminal justice system, it's the cost of children being displaced, going into care potentially, So I think National Women's Aid did some research some years ago. So it's anecdotal, much of it, but that there has been different projects doing pieces of work. But I mean, obviously, it'd be right for national government to do that piece of work, or to fund that piece of work. Because we think it should be funded, because prevention, preventing people from becoming abusers, is surely the most cost-effective way of using money.
Exactly.
Thank you. I've got a question which possibly Wendy might be able to best answer. It's for clarification on 13.2. It says that children and young people are more likely to become victims of violent crime than people over 25 years old. And I found this interesting, especially in view of what we've just been talking about, domestic abuse and also sexual offences. Does that actually, and those are violent crimes in themselves, does that statistic include all the instances of domestic abuse?
Sorry, now you're right for me to answer it. Yeah.
So she was asking you.
Just checking. Yeah. So what this is looking at is the sort of violent crime. So the government did the piece of work on serious violence and how that affects, and there is a curve for offending that peaks at age 25 and then drops after. So what this is trying to say is that sort of violent crime offending is done by, it climbs as you get up to 25, and then drops after that. So that's what that was trying to say. But the young people, so that's why the violence reduction unit and the early intervention work that is being done there is for those under 25-year-old, looking at those offences to try and stop those in the future, and that's what this is concentrating on.
So there's actually more victims of violent crime with domestic abuse aged under 25, yes.
Not domestic abuse. This is the violent offences.
So domestic abuse isn't counted.
No, it is counted as part of it. But it's only part of it. Yeah.
Right.
I think the chair's right. I think the vast, well, I'll just remind the panel that 75% of violent crime doesn't have an injury.
Doesn't have
an injury. So there's no assault in 75% of violent crime.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'll let that settle. 75% of recorded violent crime does not have an injury. So it's harassment, threats, abuse, stalking, threats to kill, and it is in the main domestic arguments where that's recorded as a violent crime. But yeah, the vast majority of victims of crime are young people. So you've actually the likelihood of being murdered on the streets in any city in the UK is a high prevalence of being a man. You know, the abuse, in a young man is most likely to get murdered. So yeah, the vast majority of crime occurs in the younger group. But again, that's where we've discussed it many times before. It gets complex in police recording systems because we record absolutely everything. We record all domestic abuse, some of which includes domestic violence. We record all domestic abuse, but it then appears in the violent crime figures.
And that's a national conversation that's happening currently, where government is saying that they want to, the Home Secretary is saying that she wants to review the way that crime is recorded, because obviously we record everything, so we disproportionately look like we've got more crime in West Yorkshire, have we? And but also we know that we crime things that we have to crime because that's the rules, and the Home Secretary is now saying should they be crimed in the same way, should they be classed as something else, because it means that you're potentially putting resources into something that is not an injury or not as serious. I mean, obviously you'll always investigate the things that Josh just talked about, but there might be something else that, an argument with your next door neighbour, for example, that might not need to be investigated in the same way. I make no comment about it because I've seen it in the detail, but that's the conversation that is starting nationally.
Right, thank you. Because it is about classification, isn't it? Yeah. I am aware of that. Was this a question on this basis?
It's about prevention. Look at 5.1.3 about traumatic abuse partnerships. It's kind of relevant, just talking to my about one of the biggest issues that comes up in my ward in Convex ward is that a lot of people I speak to are concerned about the amount of people that goes on the streets in my ward. Obviously, hoping to prevent people from doing things in the first place is going to hopefully eventually be able to reduce that. Just wondering what more is being done about that, because this is clearly something that's high on the concerns of people in my area.
So street drug dealing is often part of organised crime gang activity, and obviously there are these linchpins up here who we never see, who might not even live in this country, have got this army of often young people who have been exploited into selling drugs in our communities. And we've got a range of different ways that we address that, and it might be through a serious and organised crime unit that we're dealing with the organised crime groups, but it might be through something like Operation Programme Precision, where we're dealing with the individual or community-based drug dealing using something called hold build, what's the word? Clear, that's it, clear hold build. So I think I described the previous meeting, you might not have been here, about the way that clear hold build was used in Bradford 3, BD3 U9, around burglary, but it can be used around drug dealing, it can be used around any scourge within the community, where the police brought all the partners together They targeted the community at Bradford, at BD3, and working with all their partners and the community, co-produced a plan that took them from 852 burglaries in 1 year down to 0 burglaries in 1 year. Absolutely, and that was cited as good practice by HMICFRS when we're talking about burglaries. But they also use clear hold build across West Yorkshire to tackle local drug dealing because it's often young people being exploited. So that's a complementary approach alongside the Service Organised Crime Unit, working to identify organised crime groups, you know, the top people who are bringing in the drugs and leading that distribution network. So lots of different things happening, but obviously we also work with our key partners, work with community safety partnerships, we work with the community, because it's got to be intelligence-led if people are not telling us what's going on. So, for example, last Saturday I was in a part of West Yorkshire that I will not name, and I saw a drug deal happening in front of me. I was in my car, and the drug deal happened in front of me, and I immediately reported that to West Yorkshire Police. There was a camera in the housing office very close. I matched the time with where the camera was, and I've reported that into the system, and hopefully something will now happen in that part of West Yorkshire to address that issue. But it might not be immediate because they'll be looking at all the intelligence. Is there organised crime group activity? Is clear hold build the right response to what's happening there? So the police have got the bigger picture and they'll be able to then work out the strategy for dealing with it with the partners who are already in that locality. Anything you'd like to add?
I don't know, we've colleagues and members of the panel know we've had a war on drugs for the last 40 to 50 years. Enforcement is not going to stop it happening. So, you know, we can all look to the police to enforce, and yes, I can give you all the answers about resources and commitment and dedication and commitment. If members of our community didn't buy drugs, you won't be speaking to me about it. So the people, our neighbours, our children, our families are all buying drugs, and therefore they shouldn't be doing that. So it comes back to the very nature of this paper about prevention and a cross-sector, health-based approach to, to take people out of drugs and to prevent people from going into them. So our contribution to that is the POLED programme, our long 10, 20-year programme to try and start enforcing some further education into that education establishments. But again, it's going to be led by health, local authorities and communities, isn't it, in that sense? So it's we can only legislate and enforce so far, we all know that. So there's a different approach I think needed within society against it, really.
Yeah. And this combating drugs money, of course, is about people who are already addicted, already using substances, and a lot of the money is about getting them into treatment services. So where we're working with directors of public health across the 5 local authority areas to understand how they're using that money, but to understand how best to work in partnership so that we can maximise the outcomes. And I work very closely with your DPH and doing some great work in Halifax alongside some of your private sector providers. We've got a brilliant private sector provider who's working above and beyond to work with DPH to try and address addiction and homelessness. There's a brilliant example there that I don't know if you know about. I'll talk about it later if you want to know more. But yeah, some brilliant examples of local innovation. But as the Chief Constable says, we need to be stopping the exploitation of our young people. We need to be stopping people buying drugs in the first instance, because if we could stop that, then we won't have a problem. When did you want to?
Just to say that the Combating Drugs Partnership's money has gone to each of the local authorities, but the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor have taken that agreement with them to have a quarterly meeting. I think it's called six monthly meeting. Is that consistency that we were talking about earlier for road safety? It's the consistency of what each area is doing, being able to pass on best practice.
We've already got some really great ideas for stuff that we need to be doing around data, and there's a joint post that I think we're all looking to across the partnership. I can't remember what it's going to be doing this joint post, but anyway, there's already some brilliant ideas from the first meeting, so it's quite exciting about how we're going to be able to make it work for the whole of the structure, not just parts.
Thank you. Councillor Sharp, thank you.
Yeah, I think you've actually covered my question in response to Councillor Sullivan. I'll ask it anyway. In section 14.6, cost of living crisis, was mentioned in the report the impact of cost of living. Are you worried about the impact on services if funding isn't agreed by the MOJ?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we've already had the devastating news that we didn't get the car money, and it wasn't just the car, it was for a few other things as well. We're still awaiting cost of living increase decision, so basically, because we've now got, it's a demographic uplift for the population that we've got here in West Yorkshire. So since the census data means that we know we've got more people in West Yorkshire than we had previously. We've put in a bid to get an additional uplift to our Home Office grants to take account of that growth. We were promised a decision about 3 months ago, and we still haven't had a decision. And obviously that money we will give then to our commission services to cover the cost of living increases. We've already been able to give them a little bit of money each. We got some money unexpectedly, and we said that we can only, often happens is that government agencies will say to you, we've got some money, we need to spend it by year end, to give it to you, will you take it? We said yes, but we need to give it to our commission services because all their costs have gone up, their pay has gone up, and we need to be able to help them to continue to deliver this service, otherwise they'll go under. So they allowed that, but there's an additional uplift that we're, fingers crossed, hoping and praying for. If we don't get it, then we'll see a real terms cut to service delivery here in West Yorkshire.
Okay, thank you. Do any other panel members have any questions on this paper? No? Well, thank you very much for this report. And we'll move on to item 8, which is organisational design. And again, it sets out the rationale and method for changes to the organisational design of the police and crime team. There is a structure chart. Mr. Lake, you had some questions about this.
Yes, thanks. And first of all, in reference to the consultation, start the engagement at 3 or 4 points, 3.1, 3.4, and congratulations to doing that over the period of time you had. It was taking some time to work through the decision to make the transfer of those people. I remember that time. It was a very quick one, very short one. We all should be within 6 months' time, which was involved in no chance. So I think it's great that we've had that level of consultation. It's just a sort of generic overview question, really, which is around, are you comfortable, you've got sufficient robustness in the process there to sort of protect the budget requirements and the independence of the function going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really pleased with the outcome of the organisational design. I was really keen that we did co-produce the outcome with staff. Bearing in mind, we've got a police and crime plan we need to deliver. That had to be at the heart of all the decision making. How do we deliver this plan as effectively, quickly, and efficiently as we possibly can? And what resources do we need? Bearing in mind that we inherited an arrangement that was for a previous police and crime plan, but also a structure that had quite a lot of glitches in it. So there was a restructure from the old OPCC back in 2018 that had left a bit of a bad taste in the mouth of many of the staff who were transferring into WICA. So not only were they experiencing huge changes in moving into WICA, there still was some feeling that the restructure that had taken place in 2018 hadn't met the needs of the team at that time. So what we did is we addressed both the issues, the 2018 restructure and all those feelings around that, and what did work and didn't work. And actually it was quite good to do that because it helped us then to inform our process going forward. What went wrong there, what went right, and then coming into West Yorkshire Combined Authority, what do we need to do differently? How do we want to assimilate into WICA? Because we are part of the Mayoral Combined Authority, we do want to be a separate entity. That was really important to all of us. Thirdly, whatever we came, we would have to deliver a police and crime plan. And because we had a whole year of consultations, meetings, individual consultations, I think that the thing that we've come up with in the end is incredibly secure, sustainable, staff seem really happy with the outcome. There was we came up with a structure, and then everyone got another opportunity to have a look at what the structure meant for them, and then some changes happened post the consultation, the process being reported, and people were able to make some further changes, which I think reinforced that they had power and autonomy over that process. So yeah, I'd like to say, that we've pretty much got a happy staff team who were really keen to deliver. I mean, clearly you can always do with more, but that's not possible in the world that we live in. But we are satisfied that this should lead us to the delivery of the policing crime plan. Notwithstanding, we're going to review the policing crime plan, because obviously that's something that is always sensible to do as well, and look at whether or not, when we wrote it in the first place, were the metrics right, were the objectives, the ambitions right, and obviously that's a process that we'll share with yourselves, so that you've also got a view that's incorporated.
Yeah, congratulations, it's a very good piece of work to have that level of consultation with the team.
I come from third sector, I brought all that learning, and but Julie had to do it.
Thank you. Anyone else got any comments or questions on this particular report? Good. Thank you. So we'll move on then. Item 9. We have discussed the Baron's PC review in some detail. I don't know if there's anything else you would like to say about it.
No, it was just in case the Chief Constable wanted to make any comments, because it's a public forum.
The Baroness case review is reported to the Metropolitan Police Service. It's very clear around the cultural challenges of the Metropolitan Police Service, and it's very clear to me, having read the report, that they've not taken on board many of the recommendations of the last decade or 2 decades that have been around policing. However, we will forensically, and we are forensically analysing that report and going through every recommendation, every cause of concern, every part of it, to test what we do against that. I will report back to the Deputy Mayor in the future around what recommendations we then need to take on board within policing. And that's in an open, transparent way, in order to ensure that we don't miss anything, and that there's something that being recommended for them we should do as well. So we're using it as a touchstone, a resourcing document, and a test, a self-reflective test against everything we've done over the last certainly 12 years, to make sure that we haven't missed anything. So we're going to use it to our advantage in West Yorkshire, if that makes sense.
Thank you. So just a few other issues to report back, if that's okay.
Yes.
So clearly I think it's right that I mentioned knife crime. We've experienced a really difficult 6 months at least here in West Yorkshire, and I know that there's a great worry in our communities about knife crime. And I don't want to minimise that by saying that the evidence is that actually knife crime is reducing compared to the previous 12 months. The reality is that we have more homicides in West Yorkshire than we want, and the number of homicides this year is higher than last, and we don't want to minimise at all people's worries and fears about young people carrying knives. We want to work with young people, we want to work with local authorities and all the partners, academy schools, because they've all got a role to play, to have a different conversation. And as a result of that, the Violence Reduction Unit is has commissioned Leaders Unlocked to do a piece of work to develop a youth commission. We met last Saturday, 19 young people signed up from across West Yorkshire, and they're going to be undertaking a piece of research over 9 months, talking to young people and wider community members about issues such as knife crime, street violence, asking young people why they're carrying knives. Because we have to do something differently. Young people are scared. There's something happening with our young people, and we need to be asking some different questions. And I believe that asking young people to undertake that piece of work on our behalf might give us something different to work with, because we're at a point of no return. If we do not do something differently, then the shame is on us collectively. And so hopefully we reassure that we are beginning to ask those different questions, notwithstanding lots and lots of work is ongoing, not just with the IU, Ofgem, the Mayor funds a variety of diversion and prevention activity. some great partnership working happening, but it's not working. It's not working, and we need to do something different. To that end, we were delighted that Bradford brought in the Knife Angel. Please do go see it. It is phenomenal. We hope that that triggers a conversation across our communities. We are also pleased to say that there's going to be a knife amnesty from the 24th of April because it's anti-knife month, and we want to make sure that once again families take that as an opportunity to take knives out of circulation. And we're feeding back to there's some national consultation happening about machetes and the zombie knife things, which we're feeding back into. But that's very welcome news. And the Mayor did write back in 2021 asking for the legislation to be updated to include zombie knives, which are terrible things. The other thing I wanted to mention, as has already been said, we are pleased that the extradition of the suspect has taken place, and the person has been charged with 6 offences in relation to the murder of PC Shoreveshevsky. I just want to pay tribute to the partnership working that took place, not just here in West Yorkshire, but nationally and internationally, and also to say that whatever the time, whatever the passing of time, West Yorkshire Police will not ever give up, and particularly not when it's one of our own. The other news that I would like to report is the 5 men have been sentenced as part of Operation Tendency, and that's obviously great news. In total, Operation Tendency has led to people receiving 505 years in prison, but the work of the non-recent CSE unit has meant that 131 people have been sentenced to nearly 1,500 years since 2026. And obviously, great testament to the hard work, the diligence and the skill of our CSE here in West Yorkshire. And finally, we are being awarded £1 million by government for the ASB action plan or immediate justice as it's now being done. The details are hazy, so we're being encouraged, as it's a pilot, to form our own action plan about how we're going to develop that money. And so we want to give, so it's about preventing, it's about those people involved in antisocial behaviour being made to pay for their crimes very visibly and very quickly. There are lots and lots of things that prevent some of that happening in the way that government wants us to do, but what it does offer is an opportunity to work more closely with local authority partners and to invest in their youth services so that we can hopefully work with those young people involved in antisocial behaviour, do some of that preventative work, but also get them to atone for the activity, the criminal activity in communities, and get them to do things differently in the future. We're also working with hopefully probation, who already have the architecture of the community payback for adults, because the majority of ASB is children and young people, but there are all adults, and we want to use the community payback as something to piggyback on. So we're in conversations with them, and we're in conversations with West Yorkshire Police about the out-of-court disposal unit that they lead on. So all the partnership discussions are happening. We've got some third sector providers that we're also talking to about other elements of the plan, and we are going to be reporting back to the Home Office in a couple of weeks. We've got a survey out to all the potential partners about what they can do quickly, what they can do by June. We want this to start delivery, and we'll obviously report that to you in the future. But £1 million for West Yorkshire could not be refused, and the expectation is that in response to whatever we put in place, we should get a second £1 million next year.
Well, that's good news. Certainly, some further reports when the time is due would be very interesting to the panel on how that's going, evaluations and so on. So, are there any questions, comments from anyone in the panel?
Just to comment really, Alison. I think that West Yorkshire Police have done a tremendous job with knife crime. It has been a massive problem, and police officers have disarmed people in a busy shopping centre in Leeds with knives. the way forward is obviously prevention, and as you say, young people are very scared, and I'm delighted with the work that's going on. Also delighted we've got £1 million for ASB as well to combat that, because I think all of us have seen, and I know the reporting crime has changed, so you know, to criminal damage as well, which is the all one. I think all of us who are councillors around here have seen a rise in ASB, and we really do need to get it sorted, because it does lead to further criminal activities. So we're delighted about that.
And of course, I will say that ASB in its own form is down 9%, but the other activity, criminal activity that is now being crimed, that's seeing a rise. So.
Thank you. Mr. Lane.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I just wanted to say personally, you know, congratulations on the Shannon case. I've just been appointed to the police authority in October of 2005. This happened on the 18th of November 2005, so I can remember vividly the impact it had across the whole of West Yorkshire. So, you know, the fact that we have a man charged at the police station in West Yorkshire and been extradited, I think is a tremendous credit to yourselves and the force and everybody involved with tenacity and determination to see this through so well.
It is in West Yorkshire, I know it was a... Anyway, there will be...
Check the website,
that's again, tenacity from West Yorkshire has got in here. And just to say, the public consultation on zombie night is currently live, if anyone wants to feed into that.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, sorry. Yes.
Thank you, Jen. Regarding these knives, has anything been done to try and stop the source of these knives?
Oh, yes, lots. So clearly, there's been lots of stuff done nationally through legislation, which missed out accidentally zombie knives and shares, which is why this new consultation is out. I will send you the link. But locally, we've done work with different local authorities. There was one shop in particular, which I won't name because things are happening in the background, where we wanted to stop the sale of the knives. We were given intelligence from young people that they had purchased knives from this venue. Crimes had been committed using these weapons, and the business seemed to be, able to carry on without any sanction. So we worked with the local authority that owned a lot of the buildings, including where this shop was operating. There were lots of subleases. That was the difficulty. Lots of lease to experts and then lease. But we applied to the pressure. I wrote to the chief executive and the leader of our local authority. And working together, and I have to say that the local authority were really good. They gave notice on that shop, but at the same time, a sergeant in this local authority, I'd like to say his name, but it'd be wrong to do so because then you'll know where it is, actually searched through all the legal books that they could and found some obscure legislation which meant that they could start prosecuting the owner of that shop. So that's all in hand. But some outstanding work from the West Yorkshire Police to close that shop, which is now closed.
If we just said interesting supply, it's also the manufacture of these knives. They aren't just general kitchen.
Yeah, they come from all over the world, don't they?
Yeah.
They come from China and other places. And obviously there's already legislation preventing people sending things in without the right licensing. But the legislation, which is out now, it's live now for consultation, we need to be stressing that it's not just about selling the knives, it's about how do they get imported, how do they get into people's possession. So it's a whole chain, isn't it? Supply chain that needs to be addressed through legislation. So please do feedback and send it link.
Thank you.
Yes. There's so often these international supply chains, which are very often exploitative and have many victims along the way, just as the drug supply. Illegal drug supply chain does. There's nothing positive to be said about that particular supply chain at all. Same as with this. So yes, thank you. Anything else on this item? Well, we move on then. We've item 10 is the published key decisions. I don't think any of us had anything that we wish to say about this. Do you? No. Thank you very much. agenda, we've noted, as indeed we did last time, so then there will be things that come up and need reporting on and need to be inserted, such as the £1 million and how that's spent and so on, but the delivery plan, but that is intact as far as it goes for the rest of this calendar year in any case. I skipped the agreed actions, but I think we were happy that this was all in order. Yes? Thank you. Sorry about that. So that's item 12 and finally the item on complaints received by the panel, which we've discussed in our pre-meeting. So that leads me on to any other business. Does anyone have any other business?
No, just to say congratulations on your elevation to our Rev Leeds. I've been looking to work with you this year, and I look forward to whoever the new chair is going to be and working collegiately with them too.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And as I said, thank you everybody for all your participation and interest and very valuable questions and also the answers to give. Thank you. So the dates and time of the next meeting is the annual meeting on Friday the 9th of June here in the old courtroom. So I won't be seeing you then, and there may be some newcomers, but I hope that you're, those of you who are continuing, you'll look forward to that event. Thank you very much.